Today I want to talk about the way things were and the way things are now and the way things ought to be. When I was a kid growing up, I was born in 1960, so I was born about 11 years before Richard Nixon took us off of the gold standard. So money back then was really money. And so when I was growing up, candy bar, small Coke, cost you about 15 cents. And that was true just about the entire time I was a boy. Today, that same candy bar, small fountain drink, is going to cost you about $3.50. When I was born, a 1,000 square foot home probably cost an average of about $8,500. Today, it's anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000. When I was young, a gallon of gas was 20 cents. Now it's much closer to $3 a gallon. The point is that prices have gone up somewhere between 20 and 30 times in just the last 60 years. And that's not right. People are having a hard time making ends meet because of that. During that same time, taxes have skyrocketed. I was looking at the statistics for America. When America was first founded, there wasn't anything such as real estate taxes. How come? Well, it was because the founders believed that that was immoral and it was unconstitutional. And the reason that it was because they had a very strong belief that what a man owned ought to be his without interference or any government body saying that they had a claim on it. Well, the house we live in, when it was built, probably in 1979, probably cost between $45,000 and $50,000. Today, the taxes, just the real estate taxes on this house, are about $4,000, about $4,800 without a homestead. And so the state in which I live believes that this property belongs to them and that I should pay the same price that the house was constructed at every 10 years to them just for the privilege of living here. That's not right. And then you look at the rest of our taxes. The average American works somewhere between the first 4 months and the first 6 months of every year paying off all of their taxes, their income taxes, their sales taxes, their real estate taxes. So in effect, they belong to the government from anywhere from 1/3 to 1/2 of the year. Even Pharaoh, during Joseph's time, during the time of the great famine of the Bible, when the people had sold all of their possessions and finally they sold their land and themselves to Pharaoh, even Pharaoh only charged them 1/5 or 20% of what they made. And yet today we pay somewhere between 33 and 50% and sometimes more of what we make to our government. We who believe ourselves to be a free people pay somewhere along the lines of twice as much or more than those who were enslaved in Egypt did. That's not right. Well, what has happened? America has gotten away from God and godly principles. And when you get away from God's principles, you start becoming ruled and overtaken by your own greed as well as leaders who are greedy. Most of our representatives and senators come out of office much more wealthy than they were when they went into office to begin with. So many of them are probably spending half of a year trying to figure out how to remain in power, how to enrich themselves from their positions, all the while trying to make sure that one segment or another of the population is convinced that they're going to represent their best interests. And while they convince them of that, like any good confidence man, they end up bilking us out of a good part of our income, and that's not right. What's the solution? America used to be much more godly. I realized that we had problems back then. There were race issues that were serious. There were other issues that were not acceptable. But these issues that we had that were problems were not a result of being Christian, but it was a result of people ignoring God's principles for us. And today, after we've removed God from the public square, we've removed him from the schools, more and more people are expressing that they're atheists. They don't believe in God, much less in his son, Jesus. And the rate at which these atheists are growing is exponential right now. All of this has gone into creating a stress level in America that is very difficult to cope with. Back when I was born, one man could support his wife and his family, and his wife could stay home and raise that family instead of them both working and then paying strangers to raise their family for them. But now we feel like with prices being so high that we have to have two incomes. And a single person, just a single head of the household, sometimes they have to have more than one job just to make ends meet because prices and taxes are so high. And again, the stress level has gone up incredibly. Back in 2015, 13.2% of Americans over the age of 18 were on antidepressants. And of course, that number has only gone up. It's unimaginable that it could have gone down. And those are just prescribed antidepressants. How many people are treating their depression with drugs and with alcohol that in such a way as to complicate their depression? People are so stressed and they are so worn out that they're coming to a point where they're nearly to a breaking point. And we're seeing more and more people in our society break. The things that you read about in the newspaper about these mass shooters or somebody going on some kind of a violent crime spree or whatever it is are not a result of guns. The guns don't do the crime. It's the people who have reached the breaking point, who do not have the standards that God has set for them in their lives, or if they ever did, they've rejected them. And then you keep on adding more and more problems and more stress, and it just seems like at times the entire nation's at a breaking point. What can we do? How can we solve this? Well, the solution is surprisingly simple. We just need to get back to God. We need to start praying on a regular basis. We need to start reading the Word of God so we can find out from Him what His standards are, instead of listening to men tell us what they ought to be. This is a simple solution in the fact that it's not complicated. It's not complex, but it will be hard. Most solutions to difficult problems are hard, but they usually aren't all that complicated. We can see what we need to do. If you've been throwing your garbage out in your front lawn for the last 10 years instead of taking it out to the dumpster for it to be removed every week, you've probably got a pretty good mountain of garbage in your front lawn. It's going to take a while to get rid of it. The problem didn't occur overnight, nor can it be solved overnight, but you can begin just by stopping dumping garbage, and then you can start removing that which is already there. And as we start to do our best to address the problems that we have and clean up the mess that we have, the better we're going to feel. And so for the individual, they need to redevote themselves to God. And then they need to make sure that those they are responsible do the same thing. Parents have very much abdicated their responsibility in recent years. They don't know what to do about their children. So many have children who are disrespectful or out of control. They're using illegal drugs. They're using alcohol. They're conducting themselves in such an immoral way, in ways that I suppose have always existed, but not on this level. People think that that their body is their own, and that there are some men who think that they really are a woman that's trapped in a man's body. There are some people who think that they're really a furry or a cat or a dog trapped in a human body. And then you add that with the huge sin that we have in America today of about half of the population not even acknowledging that the body that's growing inside of a pregnant woman is a body. We've got to get back to God's standards. You start yourself. You begin to pray. You begin to read the Bible. You repent of what you've been doing that's wrong, and you start doing what's right. And those who are in your circle of influence, for those who you have a responsibility for, you can make certain demands that they lead a godly life, or there will be consequences. And for those who are just in your circle, maybe you're where you work or where your kids go to school, you insist that they change. Do it in a kind way, but a firm way. And if they won't, go find another school for your kids. Go find another job. I know this is easy to say and hard to do, but cleaning up a mess of this magnitude is not going to be easy, but we can't keep going in this way. I want to say again, I believe America and a large part of the world is at a breaking point right now, and we're seeing the results of this all over. People are less kind, people are less considerate, people are less loving. We can't continue to go in this way. We can do something about it. We can get back to godly principles, and once we do that, we can start getting some of these financial problems that we're concerned about under control. And maybe we can start getting our expenses to the point where it doesn't take two people working themselves to death all the time just to raise a family, where it doesn't take one person who's single all the hours of the day just to make ends meet. That's an effective slavery. And the odd thing is it's effectively a slavery to sin, and we don't see it. Our own conduct to a very large degree has gotten us to this point, but the good news is our own conduct to a very large degree can help get us out of this mess that we find ourselves in. But you got to start, and you've got to do so in a way that has a respect for others, a kindness towards others, but also a firmness that those with whom you associate with, that you have some say in whether or not you'll associate with them at least, that they conduct themselves well too. And that type of a godly influence, little by little, will continue to ripple out from where you are. And someday we're going to look out our front door and find that mountain of garbage in our front yard is gone. And in its place is a beautiful lawn with lovely trees. Or we can continue to do what we've always done, and we can continue to get what we've always got. The way things were not perfect, but they were much better than they are now. We need to correct the things that we can to restore the things that were good at one point, while at the same time continuing to do those things that we have advanced from that were not good in the times that have gone before. If we can do that, we can leave a world for our children and our grandchildren that's worth living in. But barring that, what kind of a world will we leave? Something to think about, isn't it? Well, I appreciate your tuning in today. I pray that God will richly bless you as you seek to do your best to get out of the mess that we find ourselves in today and to help others to do the same. But until next time, I pray that God will richly bless you as you seek to serve Him. God bless.